Have you ever watched security footage and seen something that couldn't exist? Have you ever looked at a camera feed showing a space you know isn't there, filled with people who are staring directly at you through the lens? What would you do if your train had an extra car that doesn't physically exist? But the passengers inside are waiting, motionless, as if they've been forgotten for decades. And what happens when you realize they're not just images on a screen? My name is David Chen, and I've been a train operator for the New York City Transit Authority for 11 years. 11 years of running the same routes through tunnels that predate most of the buildings above them, of watching the city's night shift file on and off my trains, of learning every station, every curve, every peculiar sound the tracks make. I thought I knew the subway system as well as anyone could. Thought I understood its rhythms, its dangers, its quirks. But what I discovered on the 6 train during the late shift on November 14th taught me that some parts of the system exist in spaces we don't acknowledge, carrying passengers we've collectively agreed to forget. The New York subway runs 24 hours, but it's the graveyard shift, midnight to 8 a.m., where the city shows its strangest face. That's when you get the true insomniacs, the essential workers heading home or to work, the people society prefers not to see during daylight hours. That's when maintenance happens, when the tourist veneer peels away and you see the infrastructure in its raw, aging reality. I'd been working these hours for 3 years by the time this started, and I'd grown comfortable with the isolation, preferred it even. Less management oversight, fewer delays, just you and the train and the tunnels. The 6 train runs from Pelham Bay Park in the Bronx down to Brooklyn Bridge City Hall in Manhattan. It's a workhorse line, always crowded during rush hour, reasonably busy even late at night. The trains themselves are a mix of older and newer cars, all linked together in 10-car consists that stretch the length of the platform. Each car has multiple security cameras feeding to monitors in the conductor's cab, letting us keep an eye on passenger safety without leaving our position. Standard equipment, nothing fancy, but functional. I'd started my shift at 11:45 p.m., taking over from the evening operator. Train was in decent shape. Car 4 had a broken speaker. Car 7's AC was running cold, but nothing that would take the train out of service. I did my safety check, confirmed all doors were operating properly, and pulled out of the Pelham Bay Park terminal at midnight exactly. First southbound trip of my shift, scheduled to reach Brooklyn Bridge at 12:52 a.m. The trip down was routine for the first half hour. Passengers got on and off at their usual stops. Nurses from Jacobi Medical Center, late shift restaurant workers, a few college kids heading back to Manhattan from the Bronx. I checked the monitor feeds periodically, making sure nobody was having medical emergencies or causing trouble. Cars 1 through 10 showed their usual late-night occupancy. Scattered individuals keeping to themselves, a few people sleeping despite the jerking motion of the train. Everyone existing in that isolated bubble you occupy on public transit at 1 in the morning. It was at 125th Street while waiting for passengers to board that I first noticed something wrong with the monitors. The feed cycles through each car automatically, spending 5 seconds on each camera before switching to the next. As I watched it cycle through, car 1, car 2, car 3, I realized it was taking longer than usual to complete the rotation. Instead of 50 seconds to cycle through all 10 cars, it was taking almost a full minute. I counted more carefully on the next cycle. Car 1, car 2, car 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then car 11. My stomach tightened. There was no car 11. The train was a 10-car consist. I'd physically walked the entire length during my safety check. 10 cars, no more. But the monitor clearly showed an 11th feed. Car 11, according to the display in the corner of the screen. The image showed an interior identical to the other cars. Same plastic seats, same metal poles, same fluorescent lighting. But something about it felt off immediately. The lighting was slightly dimmer, almost sepia-toned, like footage from an older camera, and the passengers, there were 7 of them scattered throughout the car, weren't moving, not sleeping, not just sitting still, completely motionless, frozen in positions that looked uncomfortable. One man half-turned in his seat, a woman with her hand raised as if she'd been adjusting her hair, another man standing near the door in mid-step. They looked like mannequins arranged to simulate passengers, except their eyes were open, and all 7 of them were staring directly at the camera. I felt ice slide down my spine. People don't stare at security cameras like that. They don't even notice them most of the time, and when they do, it's a brief glance before looking away. But these passengers were staring with an intensity that felt deliberate, like they could see through the camera, see me watching them, and were trying to communicate something. The monitor cycled to car 1, breaking the image. I sat there, my hand on the brake lever, trying to process what I'd just seen. Equipment malfunction had to be. Some glitch in the system pulling up old footage or creating a composite image. Except the car number had said 11, and the passenger's eyes had been focused directly on the lens in a way that felt impossible to fake. The doors closed automatically. I released the brake and pulled out of 125th Street, heading downtown toward 116th. But I couldn't stop thinking about that 11th car, about those motionless passengers staring at the camera. I watched the monitor closely as it cycled through again. Cars 1 through 10 showed normal late-night activity. A man in car 3 was nodding off. 2 women in car 6 were having a conversation. A teenager in car 9 was absorbed in their phone. Everything looked exactly as it should. Then the monitor switched to car 11. Same scene. Same 7 passengers in the same frozen positions. But this time I noticed more details. Their clothes looked dated. Not dramatically so, but enough to register. The man in mid-step wore a suit cut in a style from maybe the 80s. The woman adjusting her hair had on a dress that wouldn't look out of place in a 70s sitcom. And their faces. God, their faces had this quality of desperate attention. Like they were screaming with their eyes even though their mouths remained closed. I grabbed the radio and called the dispatch center. "This is 6 train northbound operator Chen. I'm getting a weird feed on my security monitors, showing a car 11 that doesn't exist." Static, then the dispatcher's bored voice. "Say again?" "My monitor is showing an 11th car. Train is 10 cars, but the camera feed is cycling through 11. Probably just a labeling error. System pulls up old footage sometimes when there's a glitch. Don't worry about it unless it affects your ability to monitor actual passenger cars." The footage shows passengers, 7 of them. They're not moving. A longer pause. Not moving as in sleeping. Not moving as in frozen. Like someone hit pause on a video. And they're all staring at the camera. I could hear the dispatcher sigh. "Chen, it's 1:30 a.m. and you've been driving in circles for hours. You're probably seeing some corrupted video file. Reset your monitor if it's bothering you. If you can't see your actual cars, we'll need to pull you out of service." "Copy that." I switched off the radio, frustrated. But the dispatcher was right. The real question was whether I could still monitor the actual 10 cars. The answer was yes. The phantom car 11 appeared in rotation, but cars 1 through 10 were still visible and functioning normally. I tried resetting the monitor. Turned it off, counted to 30, turned it back on. The system rebooted, the feeds re-established, and began cycling through the cameras again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Still there. Same passengers, same frozen positions, same staring eyes. At 86th Street, I made a decision. When the train stopped and passengers got off, I stepped out of the operator's cab and walked quickly down the platform. I needed to see the train from outside, needed to confirm physically that there were only 10 cars. The platform was nearly empty, just a few passengers waiting to board and one MTA cleaner emptying trash bins. I counted the cars as I walked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was it. 10 cars from the front of the train to the back. No 11th car. The train ended at car 10, with nothing but empty track and tunnel darkness beyond it. I walked to the very end of the platform and looked. Just tunnel. No hidden car, no maintenance vehicle. Nothing that could explain the camera feed. I hurried back to the operator's cab before the doors closed. Checked the monitor as we pulled out of 86th Street. Car 11 appeared in rotation, right on schedule. Same passengers, same positions. But now I noticed something that made my blood run cold. One of them, the woman who'd been adjusting her hair, had moved slightly. Her hand was now fully raised, fingers spread, pressed against what looked like a window, as if she was trying to push through the glass. Her mouth was open in a silent scream, and her eyes, staring at the camera, were filled with an anguish so profound it felt physical. I drove the rest of the route on autopilot, my mind racing. At Brooklyn Bridge City Hall, the terminal station, I had a 20-minute turnaround before the next northbound trip. I called my supervisor directly, bypassing dispatch. "Mills, this is Chen. I need to report a serious equipment malfunction." "What kind of malfunction?" I explained everything. The 11th car feed, the frozen passengers, the woman whose position had changed. Mills listened without interrupting, and when I finished, there was a long silence. "David," he said finally, using my first name in a way he rarely did. "How long have you been working graveyard?" 3 years. "Why? You ever heard stories about phantom cars? Ghost footage?" My skin prickled. "No. Before they integrated the security camera system in the 90s, before even that, there were stories. Operators who swore they saw things on the tracks that couldn't be there, extra cars attached to trains, passengers who didn't cast shadows, stations that appeared between the normal stops. The old-timers dismissed it as fatigue, tricks of light in the tunnels, the mind playing games during long night shifts. This isn't my mind playing games. This is recorded footage on a digital system. I know. That's what makes it worse." He paused. "Listen to me carefully. Can you still see and monitor your actual 10 cars?" "Yes." "Then here's what you're going to do. Ignore car 11. Don't look at it when it comes up in the cycle. Don't try to figure it out. Just do your job, monitor the real cars, finish your shift. In the morning, we'll pull that train's entire camera system and send it to technical. But right now, you stay calm and you finish your route. Understood? But the passengers in that car? There are no passengers in that car, David. That car doesn't exist. Whatever you're seeing on that monitor isn't happening now. It's not real in any way that matters." They're looking at me, Mills, directly at the camera like they know I'm watching. Another long pause. When Mills spoke again, his voice was lower. "Yeah, they do that. Just ignore it. Please, for your own sake, ignore it." He hung up before I could ask what he meant. I sat in the operator's cab, listening to the automated announcements echo through the empty station, and felt the weight of something terrible pressing down on me. Mills knew. The old-timers knew. This had happened before. This was happening now, and everyone's strategy was to look away, to pretend the 11th car wasn't there, to finish their shifts and go home and never talk about it. But I couldn't look away. Not after seeing that woman's hand pressed against the glass, her mouth open in that silent scream. Not after seeing the desperate pleading in all their eyes. Whatever was happening, whoever they were trapped in that phantom car, and they wanted someone to acknowledge them, to remember them, to see them as more than corrupted footage. I pulled out of Brooklyn Bridge at 1:30 a.m., starting the northbound run. The train was nearly empty this time, maybe 20 passengers scattered across 10 cars. I watched the monitors obsessively, waiting for car 11 to appear in the cycle. When it did, I studied every detail. The 7 passengers were all in slightly different positions now, not dramatically. No one had crossed the car or changed seats, but small adjustments. The man in mid-step had his foot fully planted now. A woman sitting near the back had her head turned at a different angle. They were moving slowly, incrementally, like they were trapped in some kind of time distortion where seconds stretched into hours, but their eyes remained locked on the camera, all 7 of them maintaining that desperate stare. And now I could see that their mouths were moving too, slowly, forming words I couldn't hear. The same word over and over, synchronized across all 7 faces. I grabbed my phone and took a photo of the monitor when car 11 appeared. The image was blurry. Phone cameras hate photographing screens, but clear enough. I zoomed in on the nearest face, trying to read their lips. The word they were forming looked like help or here, maybe both. Help us or we're here. A plea across whatever barrier separated their car from mine. At Grand Central, an older MTA worker got on my train. He was wearing the uniform of the track maintenance crew, his vest covered in reflective strips. I recognized him vaguely. Louis something, one of the guys who'd been with transit for 40 years. He walked past the operator's cab, glanced at me through the window, and his expression changed. He stopped, opened the cab door without asking permission. "You seeing it tonight?" he asked without preamble. I stared at him. "Seeing what?" "The 11th car, the passengers. You got that look. Same look I had 30 years ago when I was running trains. You've seen it?" Louis nodded and stepped into the cab, closing the door behind him. 1994, late shift just like this. 10-car train on the 6, and suddenly the camera feed shows 11. Passengers inside who don't move right, don't blink, just stare at you like you're the only person in the world who can see them. "Who are they?" "Don't know for sure, but I've heard theories." He glanced at the monitor, which was currently showing car 7. Back in the 70s, there was a fire. Train stuck in the tunnel between stations, power failure, smoke filling the cars. Official count says 32 people died, but there were reports, never verified, of a car that got separated from the rest of the train somehow. Cut off by the fire, trapped in a part of the tunnel where the rescue crews couldn't reach immediately. They say everyone in that car asphyxiated before help arrived. My throat went dry. 7 people? 7 confirmed dead from that car. But here's the thing. When they finally got to it, the bodies were in weird positions, like they'd frozen mid-movement, and all of them were facing toward the security camera, which wasn't even functioning at the time. Investigators thought it was odd, but didn't make much of it. Dead bodies do strange things sometimes. The monitor cycled to car 11. Louis and I both stared at it. The 7 passengers motionless again, eyes fixed on the lens. "That's them," Louis said quietly. "Has to be. Somehow that car is still stuck. Not in space, but in something else. Time, maybe. The footage keeps appearing because they're still there, still trapped, still trying to get someone's attention. Why? What do they want? To be remembered, maybe, to be found. That car was never recovered properly, too damaged, too dangerous. They sealed off that section of tunnel and built around it. The bodies were removed, but the car itself is still down there somewhere, rusting in the dark. Maybe their consciousness is stuck in it, replaying that last moment over and over, hoping someone will finally come help. The woman with her hand on the glass was closer to the camera now. I could see tears on her face, frozen mid-track down her cheeks. Her mouth formed that same silent word, help. "What happens if we ignore them?" I asked. "Nothing. Train runs fine. You finish your shift. Life goes on. That's what everyone does." "And if we don't ignore them?" Louis looked at me seriously. "Then you end up like me. 40 years later, still working the overnight shift, still riding the trains, hoping to see them again. Still trying to figure out if there's anything we can do for people who've been dead for half a century." He left the cab at the next stop, disappearing into the late-night crowd without another word. I continued my route, the monitor cycling endlessly through 11 cars instead of 10, the phantom passengers staring and pleading and forming their silent words. By 4 a.m. I'd made 3 full round trips, and the passengers in car 11 had moved significantly. They were all standing now, pressed against the doors and windows, hands raised, faces contorted in expressions of desperate hope. The camera angle made it look like they were trying to break through the screen itself, to reach into my cab and grab my attention by force. I couldn't ignore them anymore. Couldn't keep running my routes and pretending that car didn't exist. These were people, had been people, trapped in some nightmare limbo where time didn't pass but consciousness remained. They'd been forgotten, sealed behind a barrier of collective willful blindness, and they were begging someone to remember them. At 5:15 a.m. during my turnaround at Brooklyn Bridge, I made a decision. I pulled out my phone and called the Transit Museum. They wouldn't be open yet, but they had an emergency line for researchers needing to access archives. I got a sleepy archivist who, after I explained I was a train operator needing historical information for a safety report, agreed to look something up. I need details about the 1977 fire on the 6 train, specifically about casualties and any cars that were damaged. Keyboard clicking. Let me pull that file. Okay, here we go. Fire on June 3rd, 1977. Train stuck between stations due to power failure. Smoke and heat damage. Official death toll was 32 passengers. Cause of death was smoke inhalation and burns. Multiple cars damaged. Oh, here's something. Car R1420674 was classified as a total loss. Severe fire and structural damage. That car was... What? Says here the car was sealed in place due to unsafe tunnel conditions. Never removed. The tunnel section was reinforced around it and sealed off. Basically entombed it. Can you tell me what happened to the people in that car? More clicking. 7 confirmed deaths from car 0674, but there's a note here from the lead investigator. He mentions that the victims were found in unusual positions, all facing the same direction, toward the security camera position, even though cameras weren't functioning during the fire. He speculated they might have been trying to signal for help through the camera, not realizing it was dead. Do you have their names? Yes. I can send you the list if you... Please, send it to this number. I gave her my phone number and hung up. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text containing 7 names. I stared at them. These people who died nearly 50 years ago, and felt the weight of their forgotten existence. The monitor cycled to car 11. All 7 passengers were pressed against the camera now, their faces filling the screen, their mouths all forming the same word in perfect synchronization. Not help, as I'd thought. They were saying names. They wanted someone to say their names, to acknowledge that they'd been real people with identities and lives, not just casualties in an accident report. I picked up the radio and broadcast on the general channel, knowing anyone on the overnight shift might be listening. This is 6 train operator Chen. I'm reading the names of the passengers who died in car R1420674 during the June 1977 fire on the 6 line. Then I read them. All 7 names, slowly and clearly. First and last names, ages from the report, everything the archivist had sent me. I read them into the radio and spoke them aloud in my cab, saying each name like a prayer or a memorial. As I finished the last name, the monitor flickered. Car 11's image went dark for 3 seconds. When it came back, the car was empty. The 7 passengers had vanished. The seats were vacant, the space hollow and abandoned. Then the image dissolved completely, replaced by static, and when the static cleared, the monitor was cycling normally through cars 1 through 10. Car 11 was gone. I sat there, breathing hard, my hands shaking. The train was quiet around me. The monitor showed only the actual 10 cars exactly as it should. The phantom car, the trapped passengers, the desperate stares. All of it had vanished the moment I'd spoken their names. Mills called me 20 minutes later. Chen, dispatch says you were broadcasting on the general channel. Something about casualties from a fire? The phantom car is gone, I said. I read the names of the people who died in it, and it disappeared. Silence, then quietly. You did what? They just wanted to be remembered, Mills. They wanted someone to acknowledge they existed. So I said their names, and they left. Jesus Christ, David. He sounded shaken. Nobody's ever tried that before. Everyone just ignores them until they go away on their own. Do they? Go away on their own? No, not really. The footage cycles for hours, sometimes days. Some operators have seen it their entire shift every night for weeks. But you're saying it's completely gone? Completely. Monitor shows 10 cars exactly as it should. I could hear Mills take a shaky breath. Listen to me. When you finish your shift, you're going to write a report. Document everything, what you saw, what you did, what happened. I don't know if anyone will believe it, might hurt your career, might make people think you're unstable. But you need to document it anyway. Why? Because if it worked, if saying their names actually freed them or helped them or whatever, then maybe it'll work for the others. The others? Car 11 isn't the only one. There are other phantom cars, other trapped passengers. Different lines, different eras, different accidents. The system is old, David. More than a century of operation. A lot of people have died down here. And maybe some of them are still waiting for someone to remember them. He hung up. I finished my shift in a daze, running the same routes I'd run thousands of times before, but seeing them differently now. The tunnels weren't just infrastructure anymore. They were archives of forgotten lives, of people who died in darkness and been sealed away and never properly mourned. When I got home, I did write the report, documented everything exactly as it happened, included the names of the 7 passengers from car R1420674, attached the photo I'd taken of the monitor showing the phantom car, sent it to Mills, who forwarded it to the Transit Authority's Historical Division. I never heard back officially, but 3 weeks later, I received an anonymous package at my home address. Inside was a letter written in shaky handwriting. Dear Operator Chen, I worked for Transit for 43 years. I retired in 2003. During my time, I saw the phantom car 6 times. Every time I ignored it like we were trained to do. Every time those passengers stared at me for hours begging for acknowledgement I was too afraid to give. I've regretted it my entire life. What you did, speaking their names, freeing them, it's what I should have done decades ago. Thank you for having the courage I lacked. The names are enclosed. If you see them, please speak these names too. They deserve to be remembered. A fellow operator. Attached to the letter was a list of 42 names, different eras, different accidents, all casualties from various incidents in the subway system's long history. People who died and been forgotten, who might still be trapped somewhere in the infrastructure, waiting for someone to acknowledge their existence. I've started carrying that list with me on every shift. Haven't seen another phantom car yet, but I'm watching, waiting. And if car 11 appears again, or car 12, or any other impossible carriage carrying forgotten passengers, I'll be ready. I'll say their names. I'll give them the memorial they never received. I'll remember them. Because that's the real horror of the subway, isn't it? Not the ghosts or phantom cars themselves, but the ease with which we forget the dead. The way accidents become statistics, casualties become numbers, people become footnotes in safety reports. We seal off dangerous tunnel sections and keep running trains through the system, and we never stop to think about what we've left behind in the darkness. The passengers in car 11 spent nearly 50 years trying to get someone's attention. 50 years of appearing on monitors, staring at operators, pleading silently for recognition, and every single person who saw them looked away, followed protocol, pretended they didn't exist. Because acknowledging them would be uncomfortable, would raise questions we didn't want to answer, would force us to confront the reality that the system we depend on has buried its dead and moved on. I won't be that person anymore. I can't be. Now when I run my routes through the tunnels, I think about all the people who've died down here, the construction workers who fell during the original builds, the passengers who never made it home, the employees who died in accidents that barely made the news. They deserve better than to be sealed behind walls and forgotten. They deserve to have their names spoken, their lives acknowledged, their deaths mourned. So if you work overnight in any transit system, trains, subways, tunnels, and you see footage that doesn't make sense, cameras showing spaces that don't exist, passengers who don't move right, don't look away. Don't follow the protocol of willful ignorance. Look at them. Really look. And if you can find their names, speak them. Say them out loud like a memorial, like a prayer, like the acknowledgement they've been waiting decades to receive. They're not trying to scare us. They're not malevolent. They're just forgotten, and forgetting is its own kind of death. A second death that erases not just your body, but your existence itself. And maybe, just maybe, if we remember them, if we speak their names and acknowledge their lives, we can free them from whatever limbo they're trapped in. I still work the overnight shift on the 6 train. Still monitor my cameras, still watch for problems, still do my job. But now I'm also watching for the impossible, for the phantom cars that appear in the rotation, for the passengers who stare at cameras with desperate eyes, for the forgotten dead who are still trying to be seen. And when I find them, when car 11 appears again, or car 12, or 13, or any other impossible carriage, I'll be ready with their names. I'll speak them clearly, loudly, into the darkness of the tunnel. I'll give them what everyone else has refused: recognition, remembrance, proof that their lives mattered enough for someone to care about their deaths. That's my job now. Not just driving trains through the tunnels, but being the bridge between the living and the forgotten dead. Being the person who stops, who looks, who remembers. It's a weight I'll carry for the rest of my career, maybe the rest of my life. But it's a weight I'll carry willingly, because nobody should spend eternity trying to get someone's attention while everyone looks away. The phantom passengers of car 11 taught me that. And wherever they are now, released from their limbo, reunited with their names, finally at peace, I hope they know they succeeded. They got someone to see them. They got someone to care. They got someone to remember. And I won't let them be the last. If this story made you think about the forgotten dead in your own city's infrastructure, about the people who've been sealed behind walls and erased from memory, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment sharing stories you've heard about your local transit system, about phantom passengers or impossible footage or deaths that never got properly acknowledged. Maybe you've worked overnight in tunnels and seen things that couldn't exist. Maybe you know names that deserve to be remembered. Either way, you're not alone. We're all navigating a world built on layers of forgotten lives, trying to decide whether to look away or finally see what's been hidden. Thanks for listening to the story of car 11. Thanks for caring about 7 people who died in 1977 and spent 50 years trying to be remembered. And if you ever see footage of a train car that doesn't exist, don't ignore it. Look at the passengers. Learn their names. Speak those names aloud. You might be the only person in decades who's willing to see them as human beings instead of glitches in the system. They deserve that much. We all do.